Each year, Impact San Antonio invites a previous high-impact grant recipient to speak at agency training and to share their key learnings and suggestions based on their own firsthand experience. You'll also have the opportunity to ask them questions as part of our Q&A session, which follows. In which case, if you have specific questions for them, we're going to ask you to preface any chat questions with M and B, standing for musical bridges. So it is now our great pleasure to introduce two representatives from our 2019 High Impact Grant recipients in the Art and Culture focus area, Musical Bridges Around the World. We have with us today CEO and Artistic Director Anya Grakowski and Office Manager
everybody.
Diana Tatu, and we look forward to hearing what they have to share with us. I think they're online, and so I'm just going to say welcome, ladies, and please take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Anya and I are really excited to be here. We've talked about the things that we think would be most impactful to you during your application process. And I'm going to specifically talk about the application process and tips that I might have. And then I'm going to pass it to Anya, and she's going to share with you all of the exciting and glamorous parts preparing for the High Impact Award Night. So I'm going to jump in quickly because I don't want to take too much time. I wrote a Musical Bridges application last year, and so I'm very familiar with the process. I'm also excited for you that the process has streamlined even more. It was a great experience for me, but a few of the pointers that I had for you were about the attachments, and it seems that those have been streamlined for this year. So I think that you will very much appreciate, especially if you've done the applications in the past. But I noticed that the board roster will still need to be included. That's the same. And for me, it was a new form that I hadn't used. It was different than our internal roster. So I had to make sure that I had the information that they needed, which was name, employer, profession, role start, and end date. So those are things that you might need to gather all in one place and or confer with team members to get that information. It's also good to use that. I actually use it now in applications to other agencies or foundations because I find that it just has everything that they're going to ask. I'm excited that the project budget is embedded in the application. I think that's great. Some of your budgets may have been adjusted because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So you'll want to check with your executive director and make sure that your project budget that you might have, have on file from, the last couple of months, that's not changing at all as you're moving forward. And with the project budget, I also recommend that you are spending a good amount of time on it. Sometimes someone else might prepare the project budget and then you receive it. Well, you might not always have the notes that might go along with the budget, especially if you're just entering in the numbers into their application. So it might be a good practice to sit down with the person that creates the budget and make sure that you understand all of the notes and that you're putting them in properly. It's super tedious, but I just can't stress enough how good it is to check and triple check and just make sure that it makes sense to you, because if it makes sense to you and you're not the person that created the budget, then it makes sense to the grant reviewers. And then as far as the narrative goes, it might be a good idea, as I was listening to the webinar, to have your strategic plan and your vision handy when you're doing the application, because these things have also shifted with everything going on. And it's important to know where your organization is going, what it's planning on, how it's going to adapt with the COVID-19 pandemic. So you just want to make sure that all of your information is relevant. That'll help you really stand out, I feel. And data. So impact, right? You need data to prove that you're making an impact. Many funders across San Antonio are shifting the kind of way that they measure things, and they want to know numbers, they want to know data, they want to know what the impact is. Well, the best way to know your impact is to know who you're serving and your demographic. And this can take time to collect, especially if you're a smaller organization that doesn't have a lot of people to track all of these items. So just try your best to get a really clear picture of who you're impacting, who you're serving, how that's going to expand, you know, age, gender, ethnicity, geographic region. A lot of organizations in San Antonio like to know about city district, which can be really hard to find. I don't think that's specifically required on this one, but it's always good to know these things about your constituency and who you're serving. So that will be really helpful to craft your message if you can really get a clear picture of who you're serving and how you're going to impact them. And there are probably similar questions that you might see to another foundation in San Antonio, but you definitely can't be vague on this kind of an application. And then I guess the last point that I wanted to bring up is that one thing that we learned is that when you make it through those rounds and then you start to prepare for the high impact award night, you're gonna have to create a one-page finalist statement. At least this was the case last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, if that's gonna be different moving forward, I apologize. But it was a little bit of a challenge to get all of everything you want someone to know who doesn't know anything about your project or organization onto one page. It can be very time consuming. And it's actually a good exercise to do ahead of time because it's kind of like a case for support. So if you can and you don't already have this prepared, once you get through the first part of the application, I highly recommend trying to get it all on one page so that it's pretty much ready to go if you're going to make it to the high impact award night. This is a piece of paper that they provide to all of the members, and they get to read it and kind of get a better idea. They might not have read your application, so they might not know anything about the project. So now I'm going to pass it along to Dr. Anya Krakowski. She is Artistic Director and CEO of Musical Bridges, and she's going to talk to you about the site visit, the live presentation and practice, and how we kind of chose who to speak at the award night. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's good to virtually meet everyone. We're sitting in quarantine. I'm sitting in Musical Bridges office in front of the beautiful painting. And it's hard to overestimate how honored we were when Impact San Antonio, all these wonderful women chose Musical Bridges around the world as a high impact grant recipient. So once we received the news, we were first extremely excited, of course, and we shared this news with San Antonio through our social media, and we're very proud. And then for the first time in 22 years of existence of our performing arts organization, we had to put together a presentation for people who did not know who we were. And for those people were supposed to decide if we're worthy of high impact grant. That was a huge challenge. So if I remember correctly, it was 7-minute presentation, and we have 8 full-time staff at Musical Bridges. And the program we received the grant for is our educational program, which involves quite a few outside contracted teachers and consultants and researchers. And first dilemma was, who do we send to speak on our behalf? And so we approached it I mean, we watched Shark Tank. I don't want to say that wonderful women of impact are sharks, but we approached it with the same mentality. How can we go in a very short time to convey what we're doing, and to convey it at the way that, you know, we had to, like, for lack of other word, to sell our program to people who had no idea who we were. And I'm telling you, that was a big challenge. First, we created video, which we thought that video of testimonials of teachers and parents and students who work with our program. And we thought that's really important part that needs to be part of it. So video was 3 minutes long. We cut it down from like 10 to 3. And then we had 4 minutes left to figure out what do we say, how we say it, how we make emotional connection, as well as a scientific connection, because that program really is about research. And so we decided to start with me because maybe I'm not that good with scientific things. You know, I connect with people well. You know, I'm kind of emotional. I'm an artist and I'm a lady. And so the staff voted for me to go first. And then we chose Suhail Arastu, who is our director of institutional advancement, who actually comes from scientific background. He studied whatever it is, he studied some science before he joined Musical Bridges. So he was supposed to talk about numbers and our impact in numbers, really. And then we had to decide who goes first, who goes last. And so we decided that I'll go first and I'll make initial introduction. So after that, the challenge was how in 2 minutes, which I have to talk about, can I present the program? So Diana mentioned to you that concising the large application to 1 page is a challenge. So now imagine what kind of challenge would it be to concise that 1 page to 2 minutes where you have to go and talk to people. And so we really spent, you know, some significant time to concising and concising and concising. And then we ran the whole presentation for the people who don't know who we are. So we knocked at the door of our next neighbor at the office, who is an architect, and we just knocked at the door and said, Ed, would you please come to our office and listen to our presentation? Thank goodness, just 7 minutes, so nobody said no. And that's how we've learned that we are coming through. So somebody who has no idea what we do and why we're renting space next to him in this you know, office space, he was really impressed, and we ran it many times and we timed it. And so that was really a rehearsal. I would say that was like one of the most important live presentations I had to do, although, you know, I'm a pianist and I come from performing arts background. That was very challenging and very educational, and I'm glad we did it. After that, just, you know, just a little side note, last summer we got grant in Spain where I had to go and speak on a big stage in front of like ministers of other countries. And that performance sort of impact was a great rehearsal for that thing. So, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say, but we're open for questions. Diana and I will be happy to talk about whatever you want us to talk about.